going to get started because we have a whole bunch of presentations and not that much time to do them in. My name is Alyssa Kyle. I'm with Vision Long Island, Placemaking Director. We have quite a diverse panel here today. First we have Michelle Gervat from the American Heart Association, Ron Roel from AARP. We're going to have a little audio issues with next door, I apologize. Rosemary Miscali from Transit Solutions. Tom is not here yet from DOT, but he should be here shortly. Frank Weffering from GPI, engineering firm on the island here. Grace Healy from the Trust for Public Land, correct? Yes. Okay. And Greg Del Rio from Sam Schwartz Consultants. Yes, okay. So we're going to get started. We're going to start with kind of an overview of why complete streets are important and all the benefits to complete streets, and then we'll get into some more technical issues and about what's going on around the island.
Thank you so much. So I don't know if you've heard the news lately, the latest news. I know there's a lot going on. But here in the United States, yesterday it came out that the nation that has everything at its fingertips, well, maybe not for everybody, the nation that has incredible health systems, technology, etc., well, our life expectancy is going down. I don't know if you heard that yesterday, but our life expectancy is going down. Suicide, opioid addiction, diabetes, obesity, and of course heart disease has added to this decline. The thing is that years ago people moved around a lot more, just because they had to. It wasn't that long ago. Hold on a minute. It wasn't that long ago that most families had only one car. It's not like that anymore. Things have changed for most people, but obviously not for the better. These numbers are cause for alarm. I don't know about you, but I want to be around for my grandkids' graduations and perhaps marriages, or even them getting their PhDs. So where does complete streets fit into all of this? When babies cried and parents, well, at that time mostly moms, couldn't get them down to sleep, what did they do? They put them in their carriage, and it wasn't a stroller, it was a big bed blank, right, carriage, and they took them for a walk. To sleep they went. Babies went down, mom's stress went down a little bit too, and all was well. Today, not so much. We can do that in some neighborhoods, but some neighborhoods are not safe enough to walk in. Some neighborhoods do not have parks to walk in. Today, babies are put in electronic swings, ones that sway in all different ways. They sing to the babies, and next you know, they're going to wind up being able to pick up that baby and burp that baby. We'll see. AHA priorities, increasing physical activity and physical fitness across the population, because engaging in daily physical activities reduce the risk of obesity, coronary heart disease, stroke, hypertension, diabetes, and some types of cancer. Promoting active transportation, the opportunity to bike, walk, or roll to work, school, or around the community through policy systems and environmental change is one of the leading evidence-based strategies to increase physical activity across the lifespan. We all know this. Are we doing it? Are we doing anything for it? Vulnerable populations, including people of lower income, people of color, the elderly, children, and people with disabilities are often disproportionately affected by incomplete and unsafe streets. Pedestrian fatality rates are higher in these communities, and many also suffer from higher rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. The AHA recommends at least 30 minutes of moderate intensive aerobic activity at least 5 days a week for overall cardiovascular health, and an average of 40 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity 3 or 4 days a week. It helps lower blood pressure and cholesterol. Providing safe active transportation options for these underserved communities would provide an opportunity for daily physical activity and result in better outcomes for all New Yorkers, all Americans. So instead of driving to some places where you need to get those steps in. And an equitable, complete streets plan would ensure that you could do that all in one piece. I'm no cardiologist, but I'm pretty sure being hit by a car is pretty bad for your heart. Along with the above, the AHA is a proponent of safe routes to schools and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. They have a tremendous amount of information and grants there. If you want to start small projects, go to those websites. There's a tremendous amount of information there. Also, our website, Voices for Healthy Kids, has a tremendous amount of information there. There's toolkits and packets that you can take a look at. And this way, you can bring that to your communities, to your local civic associations. I'm going to leave you with this. Every child should have healthy foods, drinks at home and in school, safe streets for biking and walking, and places to play after school. We're working to ensure that the places where children live, learn, and play, along with their adult parents and guardians and family, make it easy and enjoyable for them to eat nutritious foods, be active, and develop as healthy Americans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just realized that I forgot to make a plug at the beginning of this, so just want folks to take a look at flyer in your packet for an event called Charting the Course, which is making Suffolk County millennial friendly in the role of business, government, and community in attracting and retaining young workers. Just want to let folks know that that's in the packet. Okay, next we have Ron Roel from AARP.
Thanks, Alyssa. Let me just give you a 1-minute summary of how I got to AARP. I'm not a staff member. I'm sort of an active volunteer. I've done work for AARP. My background actually is a journalist. I worked for Newsday for many years. I was the editor of the real estate section and also started the Act 2 section for people 50 and older. So basically, I've known about the smart growth movement for a long time. I've been working with Eric and previously Ron Stein, previous president, since around 2000. So one of the things that I found interesting was over the years the connection between smart growth and what I'm now working on a good deal for ARP, which is age-friendly communities. So basically, Complete Streets has been a part of AARP for several years. They've been one of the sponsors of the National Complete Streets Coalition. And so why is this? What's the interest from AARP's perspective? Well, if you think about it, one of the things that AARP promotes is healthy aging in place. So they say, well, and this is across the country, but on Long Island too. 90% of people want to age in place, basically meaning they want to age in the place of their choice. Many times they're single-family homes. So in order to do that, people get less mobile as they get older, so you need walkable communities, you need to connect people to downtowns. Walking is, having these kinds of communities, it's healthier for you. Walking is the best exercise as you get older. It connects you socially in terms of engagement. It connects you to your downtown, to retailers. So there are economic and social and health benefits. But there's one little problem. By promoting walkable communities, you're basically putting seniors in danger. Because if you don't have complete streets, the chances of seniors getting injured or killed from pedestrian accidents is 50% higher than younger people. They're less mobile. They have vision issues. So if you're going to have, you've got to connect the dots. You can't be promoting walkable communities and aging in place if your streets are dangerous. So there's a very pragmatic, element to this. And besides, people are getting to recognize that communities are for everybody. They're for people, whether the people are in cars, bicycles, or walking. So it's a much more democratic view of what really are communities. And what people have come to understand is that it's not. Does anybody have an idea? What country do you think has the safest streets in the world? Is that? I can't. Well, country. That's it. Close. Sweden. Sweden. You might say, well, that's interesting. Well, but it's not really a matter of culture or geography. It's a matter of intentionality. Sweden began around 1997, and they developed a project called Vision Zero, which you might have heard about it from New York City. That's one of de Blasio's big initiatives to decrease pedestrian accidents to zero. But it's a very intentional approach that uses all the elements of complete streets: traffic calming, narrowing the streets, dealing with pedestrian crossings. So they have reduced dramatically since 2000 the number of pedestrian accidents. So it's a matter of what your commitment is, and basically, I think that it dovetails very nicely with the age-friendly community and the smart growth community movement on Long Island, because now what ARP is trying to do is recognizing that what's good for seniors is good for everybody. It's good for families. Yes, seniors and communities, lower income communities where there aren't any resources are in greater danger of pedestrian accidents because they don't have the resources to provide complete streets. But this is something that I think people are realizing can be a broad benefit, because one of the examples, and I'll end with this, I know a lot of people have things to say, is that you can, there's a concept called universal design. Are people familiar with this idea? You are, yes, okay. So universal design is a building concept that is often used in creating housing for seniors, where you have basic standards of design like wide doorways that can accommodate wheelchair users, okay? But people have discovered that, wait a minute, having wide doorways is not only good for wheelchair users, but for young families with baby carriages. So you can accommodate many dimensions, by providing, standards that benefit every generation. And I think that's what Complete Streets is about, and that's what ARP's, orientation is toward providing an age-friendly community. And Complete Streets, provides this kind of benefit for all ages. Thank you. Unfortunately, I have to leave a few minutes early because I've got to go to a wedding in Connecticut.
For me and maybe for my son in the future, a very great direct line.
It'll save me a lot of time, so I can't wait for it to happen.
When it's complete, I'll be sure.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Miscali. I'm the manager of Transit Solutions, which is a program of the MTA that promotes transit ridership to improve our air quality. I also chair the U.S. Green Building Council Sustainable Transportation Committee, so I look at other forms of sustainable transportation as well. My talk today is going to talk around the impact of complete streets for transit ridership.
Not only save time and more efficient, but it improves your quality of life. So this is really a good use of public funds. This is what we should be doing.
When the customers come in for the very first time, what they'll experience is a brand new, clean, quiet, relaxed environment. It's going to be bright, it's going to be spacious, comfortable, and welcoming. We know that our customers are going to love it.
So I'll talk about the impact of transportation on Long Island, the impact of transportation on Long Island, some barriers to transit ridership caused by incomplete streets, and a couple of complete streets case studies. So today, if we look at transportation on Long Island, 75% of us drive alone to work in single occupancy vehicles. The impact of that is that from an air quality standpoint, our air quality as measured in Suffolk County for ozone levels is an F on the report. We have more air quality alert days that is healthy for us. Nassau County, I'm sure, has similar numbers. They just don't monitor for ozone. From a greenhouse gases, transportation accounts for 30% of our greenhouse gases. So if we're looking to become more carbon neutral, we really have to focus on transportation. And from an energy standpoint, 28% of our energy use is from transportation as well. So oftentimes we expend more energy getting to work than we actually use at work. Focusing on trying to have more sustainable forms of transportation helps greatly from an environmental as well as health benefits that Michelle spoke to. So what are some barriers to transit ridership from incomplete streets? Well, familiar with all of this. If we look first, limited sidewalks make it difficult to walk to transit. So I happen to live in Manhasset in an area, the village of Planome Heights. We have sidewalks. I'm about a half a mile from the train station. I was one of the few that raised their hand this morning that I actually walked to my train station. We've never needed a parking pass for it. But in most locations, a half a mile would not be safe, because without sidewalks, you're talking about, walking in the middle of the streets, with crossing busy roads. So having more sidewalk capabilities definitely would increase access to transit. For buses, they flow in the middle of traffic. So the speed of buses are greatly impacted by not having complete streets. We think of complete streets in terms of sidewalks, but it's really making the streets usable for not only drivers, but pedestrians, bikers, and transit riders. So if we had more ability for buses to have dedicated lanes or some other technology that I'll speak to, then you'd get more people riding the buses, which would have less traffic, which would make it better, for everyone. Some other barriers are dangerous roads. So, if you're in the Hofstra area and you're trying to get off the bus and cross Hempstead Turnpike, you're taking your life into your hands unless you walk.
We will have over 255,000 square foot. I think it will actually be more than Grand Central at the end of the day. So,
yeah, I'm back. The dangerous roads are evidenced by the high pedestrian fatalities that we see on Long Island. We're at the top of the state. Well, Sylvia can have more data on that. And then we have the bus stops themselves. This picture doesn't happen to be for Long Island, but we have plenty of bus stops like that are in unsafe locations, or there might be bus stops that are plowed over in terms of snow, and then you can't stand on it, from there. So these are all barriers to people using transit that are complete streets issues. So what are some opportunities for complete streets with transit ridership? First, I think and foremost, it can enhance the first mile, last mile options. So you can have more, if you have more walkable streets, people can access, whether it's the Long Island Railroad Station or the bus stops, in a safe manner. If we had bike lanes, we'd have bike share coming to Suffolk County. We'd be able to put that in more places and have safe bikes for regular bikes or for bike share. That also gives another first mile, last mile option to transit. If we had more bus accessible lanes, like is being planned for the bus rapid transit routes that Suffolk County is looking at for Route 110 and for Nichols Road, and eventually for the Saginaw Coast, we'd have better traffic flow with our buses, including a traffic signal prioritization, which I can talk to. These are all things that would improve access to transit and speed of it, that would make it more user-friendly and people wanting to use transit. So here's a case study of priority signal system. This is part of a bus rapid transit system in Los Angeles. This particular component of it, the priority signal, allows buses to extend the green lights and shorten the reds. So while they're still, in some cases, flowing in traffic, they might also have a dedicated bus lane. So when they come through, instead of waiting for that light, they can go right through. In the case study there in Los Angeles, they resulted in a 25% decrease in travel time and a 30% increase in transit ridership. So there's great opportunity with making the roads accessible for transit, as well as just, people driving in their cars. This was another study that was done in municipalities and in counties to say, in those counties or municipalities that had complete streets policies, what was transit ridership. Now, this isn't a cause and effect. It wasn't like you pass the policy and suddenly everybody starts using transit. And in some cases, I'm sure there's complete streets policies being implemented in places where there would be opportunity. But it's interesting to note that municipalities that have complete streets policies have twice the number of transit ridership. And in the county level, it's 3 times the level of county ridership as ones that don't have complete street policies. So, you know, I think you put the policy in place first, then you get people focused on getting funding to implement that, and it really does address some of the barriers, and you start to see more transit ridership. So I'll close with a resource that's available for anybody looking for, you know, ideas. The FTA has a manual that they published last year that's looking at integrating pedestrian and bicycle connections with transit, and they have a lot of great, you know, ideas in that. You can just Google it, you'll find it. It's a great resource. That's it.
Thank you. There's not much I can add with all of that.
Good morning,
all
folks.
that is $20 billion.
Can you hear me?
No.
That's going to benefit Long Island.
It did, because they were complaining it was too loud there,
and
raising it
appropriated
on
by
each
the
side. And
FCC.
But they're
yeah,
kind of drowning us out.
Which is why we have debt service, except for a major portion of the site access.
So good morning. My name is Tom Temistokal. I'm a safety evaluation engineer for the New York State DOT, Region 10 here in Hopog. And I'd like to talk with you a few moments about the Pedestrian Safety Action Plan, or as we lovingly call it, the PSAP.
To accommodate that, both for the development there, but also as a reliever for Ronkonkoma.
So what is the PSAP? Well, in 2016, Governor Cuomo announced it. He announced the website and the document, and it's a 5-year program to help improve pedestrian safety throughout New York State. Now, the governor also announced at this press conference that he was making available $110 million to do pedestrian safety improvement projects throughout New York State. This doesn't include New York City. They kind of do their own thing. 70 million went to
and so we're looking at Yaphank also as a reliever.
the DOT regions. We have 11 regions throughout the state. 10 of them had a share in the 70 million. And 40 million was available for local governments if they had some improvement projects they wanted to make. For us in Region 10, the Long Island region, it meant that we needed to treat all of our uncontrolled crosswalks. These are crosswalks you'll find mid-block, no stop sign, no yield sign, no signal. We're just at the mercy of a motorist yielding to the person who wants to cross. And we're also under the gun to treat half of our signalized crosswalks. And what we're going to do at signalized crosswalks is add countdown timers, audible pedestrian signals, the kind of buttons that you press and give the pedestrian some feedback. And most of our locations already have that. But anyway, we need to treat all of those in phase 1. And there's a phase 2 where we'll get to the rest of these signalized crosswalks. So we got $12.5 million in DOT for 2 phases of projects, and local governments got $12.5 million. So we got the lion's share statewide. We've got $25 million to make improvements out of the 110. Let me just explain to you what eligible work is, because this is the caveat. We need to make sure that the work we do is eligible. This way we'll get reimbursed. Eligible means we're not adding new crosswalks. What we're doing is treating existing crosswalks and making them safer. This is true both on the DOT side and on the local project side. Also, we need to follow a process. There's a 3 E's process, which is engineering, education, and enforcement. And also, we need to justify our decisions because we have limited dollars. And we have to make sure we're making smart choices. So we need some analysis behind it. And in the business, we call that a data-driven process. So I can give you 3 good reasons why we need PSAP. There's lots of pets being struck and killed in New York State. A significant portion of all motor vehicle crashes involve pedestrians. And the big thing for me, as I've been working in this area, is that there's an economic cost beyond like the hospitalization and recovery of people who've been struck. People who've been killed, we're depriving society of the benefits they would have brought to us had they lived their lives and contributed. So this is really a tragic situation and we need to help.
the ability.
This map shows where crashes are happening throughout New York State, and you see the Long Island region is very well represented. This helps us to decide where we're going to put our money and make the improvements. Now this slide shows where Long Island communities rank. Note that both counties make the list. Note that all 3 Nassau County towns make the list. And 4 of the 5 western Suffolk towns make the list. It's 2 columns, I'm sorry. The one column is focus counties, the other column is focus town. So Mr. Alexander made a point of talking about Smithtown this morning. Smithtown didn't make the cut, actually. They're not a high pedestrian crash area. And none of the 5 East End towns in Suffolk are on the list either.
One thing I do want to apologize.
So where are we today?
It's 11 o'clock because I have to take my 90-year-old mother to the doctor today. It's my day.
You can see we're treating a lot of our 200-plus crosswalks. We're getting there. We're not just doing signs and markings, which are basic improvements. A lot of our crosswalks that are uncontrolled, we decided they would benefit from either a signal or a flashing beacon. And we're doing a significant amount of that work as well. As far as the $40 million available statewide, we've got 4 government agencies on Long Island that are sharing in a little bit over 13 million. So we bumped that 12.5 million up a little bit. And there's 5 projects, 4 agencies. Suffolk County DPW has 2 projects going. And the last thing is the 3 East Corridor project, which DOT is doing in consult with our consulting engineers. We're going to look at a half-mile in downtown Huntington, which is a very congested area with lots of pedestrians and a lot of nightlife. And also further east in Brookhaven and Miller Place, Rocky Point, we have a nearly 4-mile segment we're going to look more closely at. Now I'm going to just run through some slides showing you some of the work we've done. We did some uncontrolled crosswalk work in Greenport. Here's a sample of some of the signs we put up. Note that the PED signs, there's a reverse image, so we're able to place signs on both sides of a crosswalk, and the pedestrian or the school child is always entering the crosswalk. We think that makes a difference. We have ahead plaques for advanced signing. We have the downward pointing arrow at the crosswalk so motorists know where the PEDs are going. So it's the color, it's the message, it's the retro-reflective strips, which is new for us, that we're putting on the post themselves, and they really light up at night. In Massapequa, near a school, there were 2 uncontrolled crosswalks. We thought they would benefit from a flashing beacon, and that's sort of what the beacon looks like there. It's got a signature flash to it to get the motorist's attention. Here's a signal, here's a signal location that we did in Babylon. There was an existing crosswalk here with a very long crossing distance, 75 feet plus, multiple lanes, parking lanes, and a turn lane. And we thought this was just too risky. We needed to put a signal here. And see, here's what it looks like with the new signal. In Hicksville, there was 5 uncontrolled crosswalks, and we thought they would benefit from a signal. Again, it was such a long crossing distance, and we're really at the mercy of the motorist yielding to the pedestrian. So we have 4 signals going in Hicksville to take care of 5 crosswalks. Out in Bridgehampton, we have a lot of work going on. We have 6 work locations. 3 of them will get beacons. The other 3 are signalized, but they'll be rebuilt with new crosswalks added. I shouldn't have mentioned that because we shouldn't be adding new crosswalks, but since we do have a lot of countdown timers, and that part of the work is, we're going to have some extra funds left over, so we need to use it. Another look in Bridgehampton, there's a triangular island out there with a one of the world wars has a monument there. So there's a lot of sensitivity over there, and we needed to be careful with the community. They love their trees. We don't want to cut anything down. And so we're doing a lot of concrete work, and we're adding a crosswalk. Here's the 3 East Corridor. There's a look at Huntington, which is a half-mile segment, and nearly 4 miles down in Miller Place. And that's it for me. Thank you.
With a disability can get on our vehicles at any time, every single vehicle. And that's a fleet of 350 vehicles. They're all CNG, they're all compressed natural gas. And we are also looking at adding a fleet of electric vehicles and electric charging stations. Again, adds diversity to our fleet over time. So the one thing that
So good morning. My name is Frank Weffring from GPI. I'm the Director of Sustainability for the company. We're a planning and engineering company with a headquarters in Babylon and about 1,500 people up and down the east coast of the US. This is about a concrete case, complete streets case. It's not called complete streets, it's a walkability study, or to be more precise, Lindenhurst Downtown Walkability Improvement Study. And I'm just gonna show you what we do there in this important project.
But how can we as a county, as Long Island, help that along? How can we get more people out of their cars into the buses? And that is really looking at the street infrastructure to help us do that. Signal light prioritization that allows us to
just to introduce you to the study a little bit. This is part of the downtown revitalization initiative in Lindenhurst. The walkability study is funded through a Suffolk County grant, and it's one of those projects that we see a lot on Long Island now, where villages, municipalities want to do something about their downtown, revitalize them, get life back in there. Same thing in Lindenhurst. This is a 10-month process. We're in the middle of it. We started in July. We're hoping to finish in April. Existing conditions analysis just been finished. We're going to provide best practice analysis report to the village and design alternatives. I will show you those. We have nice visualizations, and of course the study at the end will include an implementation plan, so you can actually you have a schedule of when to implement measures and what it would cost and so forth. Why walkability? I'm not sure if I couldn't hear Michelle very well, but there are obvious reasons for walkability, to doing walkability projects. One of them is, of course, health. So some smart persons, some doctors, walking is the closest thing to a magic bullet for health. So there's several aspects of how we can improve our health with by just walking, from cancer to heart disease, diabetes, stroke, arthritis, and so forth. That is not really what drove Lindenhurst to do this study. So quite frankly, they are worried about economic development, obviously, downtown revitalization, and that those are the benefits that go along with walkability. So there are studies all over the world done that there are true economic benefits in terms of increased real estate values. There have been studies in Toronto, in New York City, that there's increased income of businesses, and actually that people on foot visit stores more often and spend more money on average than people driving. So those are all valuable aspects or reasons why to do walkability studies and walkability improvements. And same thing, obviously, also in Lindenhurst. And when you talk to the folks in Lindenhurst, they want to be like Babylon, and places that thrive, and and you can walk there. You can walk better in Babylon and Patchogue and so forth. So they want to be like that, and so how to do it. In our mind, we need a participatory planning approach to do so. Why? Because we need to explain to people who us here on Long Island, we always drive. You know, we have to drive everywhere. It's a car-dependent society. Why all of a sudden walking? So there's a certain element of information and awareness raising, which we have to do in this study, in the process. But we also want to get the input from the community. So what do they really think has to be done? And we want their buy-in for the plan. So the village representatives certainly don't want to have a controversy afterwards. So getting the people involved, the community involved, and getting their opinions in and reflecting that in the plan, that's half the buy-in that you're looking for. So the things, this is rather standard thing to do. This is a walk audit. We call them Linden walks. Originally we planned 3 of those, 1 each for the village representatives, so elected officials. You see the pictures up there? Sorry? 2 minutes? Serious? Okay. For the Lindenhurst community and the Chamber of Commerce, so you see we brought all stakeholders in. At the end we did 6 of those walks, and they were very good. We had 75 people walking with us all together. We would like to do more than 75. The village has 27,000 people. 75 is not a whole lot. It's not nothing, but it's not enough. So you see the poster there, make your voice heard. We started a campaign also on the internet. So if you go on lindywalks.net, you will find a whole lot of information about the study. This is actually a snapshot of the study. And you can go and leave your comments. So you will see this map. This is the downtown region. These are all pins that people dropped with specific comments that they had on what they would like to see in Lindenhurst in terms of improvements. You can have criticism. You can say I like what I don't like. You can comment on other people's comments. And this is how it looks. This is the leave your feedback page. So please go to that site, and obviously if you're from Lindenhurst, do it. If you have a stake in Lindenhurst, do it also. We're about to send out 9,000 postcards with a sanitation calendar, so we're expecting another wave of input. Right now we have 120 people commenting on that. And so this is important, communicating technical concepts. We can always, as engineers and planners, we talk in technical terms that, those are our terms. You know, we understand when we say bulb outs, signalized crossings, stuff like this, and more technical terms even. But what does that really mean to the community, to the people who are affected by it? So we try to approach it in a way to we put animations on the website, and we show people how our improvements could look like. So this is the design suggestion side. This is not it. This is a Google Street View, and this is our suggestion. So go back and forth. You see, this is actually very nicely done. I think it's a lot of software that went in there, and our CAD specialists have developed that. I think it's awesome work. So the video, the animation video is online. You can see that. This is again snapshots. So here we're eliminating the right turn, which only fits one car anyway. We're putting in bike racks. It's a walkability study, but it's really a mobility study. So we're looking at how to improve also cycling and transit and so forth. Another example here, this is a crosswalk at the main intersection in Lindenhurst, Wellwood and Hoffman Avenue. You see, you can walk across there, but you're pretty exposed to the traffic. Here again, a Google Street View, and this is the suggestion here to extend the median. We're talking there about safe pedestrian islands. I think you can see it there. It's also a bulb out, so we're moving the curb inside and making the street narrower. As remember, I told you before, we have taken the right turn lane away. There it's gone. It's only 2 lanes there. So this is that effect. This is the Hoffman Avenue, East Hoffman Avenue. It goes on both sides of the LAR track. We are proposing to extend the village median, and it would look like this. We don't think the street is really needed much, at least, so it could be a people space, and certainly a nice place in the center of downtown, which is a destination. And there will be ways for vehicles to find other ways. We are looking at that. This is another example. This is how the road looks right now, and this is how it could look. If you're familiar with Lindenhurst, just between the track and the courthouse. And I'm finishing up. This is another, I really love those drone videos. We have a drone pilot, we go up, take these great shots, and I tell you, as a planner, it gives you new perspective to see things from above, and you always see things in a new way. So this is again the South Wellwood Avenue, the main street of Lindenhurst. And well, that was a quick rush through that project, but that's it.
When we took our original possession of the growing carloads, when we took over in 1993, about 10,000 carloads per year, about 40,000 trucks.
Can everyone hear me? Okay, because it's a little hard to hear myself, so if you can't hear me, just let me know.
I think it's a little better over here.
Okay, good.
Oh,
could you just click enter, please? Thank you. Closer. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Grace Healy, and I'm with the Trust for Public Land. The Trust for Public Land is a national nonprofit, and our mission is to create parks and protect land for people, ensuring healthy, livable communities for years to come. Across the country, we have created more than 2,000 parks, we've protected more than 3.5 million acres of land, and we've helped build over 2,000 miles of trail. So today I'd like to talk to you about the Empire State Trail and how we're working with New York Bicycling Coalition to extend it to Long Island. Before I dive in, I just want to thank our incredible supporters over the last year, the Land Trust Alliance, the Long Island Community Foundation, and the Roush Foundation. So, okay, some background on the Empire State Trail. Governor Cuomo announced the trail in 2017, and it's the state's ambitious effort to connect existing trails and create some new trails to create a 750-mile trail network that will go from Buffalo and Plattsburgh down to the Battery at the southern tip of Manhattan. They've invested $200 million into the project, and they're hopeful to have it complete by 2020, which is right around the corner. Unfortunately, for all of us in this room, they left Long Island out. For probably, reasons of Long Island is pretty dense with development, and there aren't too many east-west trails already existing that could be connected. So the Trust for Public Land saw this as an opportunity to get involved. Before we just jumped in, we wanted to make sure that there was a need for this on Long Island and a desire. So I don't really need to reiterate these facts that all of my fellow panelists have stated, but Nassau and Suffolk rank pretty high for bicyclists and pedestrian injuries and fatalities, much higher than the rest of New York State. It was also around this time that we reached out to New York Bicycling Coalition, they're like a leading educational and advocacy bike group across the state. They have great grassroots support. So we wanted to reach out to them to see, have they, been hearing that people would be interested in something like this? And together, we definitely heard that people are interested.
So that's the story that we try to tell.
So,
somebody's unhappy with a freight train going.
First, we wanted to develop a few goals. What did we want this trail to do for Long Island communities? And we wanted it to increase connectivity to other parks, to downtown areas, to transit like the Long Island Railroad. We wanted it to increase equity and public health by making this accessible to all users, particularly those who may not live near other recreational opportunities. And finally, we wanted it to promote community vitality. So as Long Island kind of positions itself as a tourist destination similar to Napa Valley, the Empire State Trail will offer an alternative means of transportation to some of the region's best cultural and recreational assets.
We are privileged and
So over the last year, we worked with New York Bicycling Coalition to identify a preliminary east-west route that's primarily off-road through Nassau and Suffolk County. We also worked to create a connecting route from Battery Park at the southern tip of Manhattan to Nassau County through Brooklyn and Queens. We built a community of support and did a lot of stakeholder outreach, not only to community members, but also to state and local officials, business leaders, and more. And we also came up with some next steps, that way we could take off the momentum we've gained over the last year and really move this project forward. So to find a route that was as off-road as possible, we wanted to look at LIPA corridors, utility corridors, and also Long Island Railroad right-of-ways. And those utility corridors really surfaced as a great option for an off-road trail. In some cases, the new LIPA corridors are old Long Island Railroad corridors, so they are actually very flat and could be, easily turned into a trail. We met with LIPA, and they offered, preliminary support and interest in the project, so we were grateful for that. There are examples from other parts of the country, and a really exciting precedent for us is the Port Jefferson to Wading River Trail that Suffolk County is going to break ground on in 2019. So we used GIS technology to identify a route, and then we also relied heavily on our community volunteers to help us ground truth some of those areas. So now for the exciting part, I'm wrapping up. Now for the exciting part, we have a route. So I hope you can see it okay. There's also maps on your tables. So you'll see we come into Nassau County, we connect off-road from Eisenhower to Bethpage State Park, go into Suffolk, and we stay along that solid line through the center corridor of Long Island, through Riverhead, up to the North Fork, and then we use the Shelter Island Ferry to get back down to the South Fork. So about this map, pause for the applause in the other room. So the dotted lines are our alternative route, while the solid line is our primary route, and the yellow-green color is off-road, while the yellow-orange color is on-road. So it's definitely a mix, but we tried to keep it as off-road as possible. Here's another map just with, you can see the Long Island Railroad there, so we are hopeful that this can serve for many people as a transportation alternative. So what comes next? We're excited for phase 2. Moving forward, we are going to kind of verify and ground truth the entire route, and we're also going to develop 2 pilot segments of trail, one in Nassau and one in Suffolk. And for those 2 segments, we're going to fully plan from alignment to surface material to amenities. And we're hopeful that when the state wraps up the Empire State Trail in 2020, that they'll be able to take over these 2 pilot segments. And ultimately, we're hopeful that by 2021, the state will adopt our entire plan for the Long Island extension of the Empire State Trail. Thank you so much.
The microtransit solutions that we're talking about.
So as the presentations are going on, I'm seeing the heads swivel further and further between the presentations and the speakers, so I'm going to move over and facilitate that a little bit. Plus, I like to move around. So I'm Greg Del Rio. I'm an engineer and planner with Sam Schwartz, and we've heard a lot about implementing projects, existing projects, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're all working for and should be thinking about for the future. And so with that, change is coming, right? We need to start thinking about this. We need to think before we dig, kind of a thing, and start planning for all these new mobility choices that are coming. And you heard a lot about it today, this morning, with the interest in TOD and smart growth, and that's what we're all here for. So technology is going to be helping us out. All these other mobility choices are going to help us out in the future. So we're going to look at the future. We want to start off with what's happened in the past. So the streets used to serve, and they still do, serve a lot of purposes, right? So movement is certainly one, commerce, socializing, play, and back then a little bit of horse manure, right? Pick it up. maintain our streets is really the point of that, right? And then the car came along, and we had to sort of, before in that first slide, people just walked wherever they wanted to walk. If you wanted to cross the street in the middle of the block, you did that. Then this concept came along of shining a light in your face, right? And if it was red, you had to stop, and if it was green, you had to go, and you had to go to the corners to cross, and you no longer were crossing in the middle of the street. Change was happening. But things were still pretty organized, right? But then it started to get out of control, and we just focused on movement, and some stuff on the side, right? And that was our focus. So now, we started going from the public realm where we were pushing out further and further, and we're starting to twist that around, right? You've heard a lot about that today in some of the examples. So we're starting to push back into the street, right? We're starting to build plazas, we're starting to become more pedestrian friendly, we're starting to build flexible spaces, and again, we're starting to push back out in the street. We're starting to reclaim some of that public space for other uses and not just focus on the car and movement, right? And we're getting smaller, right? We're starting to get other ways of moving things around. I don't know if you've seen it, UPS now is using pedal assist bicycles to make some of their deliveries in some communities. Taking up less space, getting around traffic, solving some of the problems that we're facing with congestion. So continuing pushing back is a blueprint for autonomous urbanism, right? How do we sort of start preparing ourselves for the autonomous vehicles, for these changes in technology, for more bike share, for scooter share, and all these other technologies that you're starting to hear for choices for mobility. And these are just sort of those concepts that to reclaim space, to reclaim curb space. More and more communities are starting to use their sort of curbsides for different uses during different times of the day. So we start with our new canvas, we add in sort of the new sort of vehicles and ways of getting around, and we start to say that the future is going to start looking a little bit different. It's starting to look almost like it used to. What's old is new again, right? So you're reclaiming that space. We need less and less space, hopefully, if we're successful, to move around, to do that major moving around with our new vehicles and give our choices. And actually have places, right? Our downtowns and our suburban areas, not just our cities and our core. So this is just some of those choices, and things are happening so fast we can't even keep up, right? There's new terms. We don't even know what to call things anymore. We're calling them micro-mobility. We're calling it mobility as a service or transportation network companies. Those two last terms I just said are basically generic terms for Uber and Lyft. Right? So, but we always say Uber and Lyft, so you understand what we're actually talking about. So, autonomous vehicles, pedal assist bikes. This is coming more and more. You're starting to see more electric bicycles in all the communities. This is we did a study for one of the river towns in the Hudson River, and we showed how that expands your accessibility. Similar to the North Shore, right? You don't want to ride a bicycle as easily as you can on the South Shore, but with a pedal assist bicycle, all of a sudden a mile or 2 mile trip to the train station becomes a lot more feasible on a bike, but you might not want to do it today, again, particularly on the North Shore. So, again, things are changing, just like you used to do. You used to have the cow, you used to do the milk, and then all of a sudden one day we just went to the store and we bought the milk, right? So that's sort of also what's happening now. What is going to be the future? We don't know. Hopefully it's going to be a mix. I think that's probably the right solution, and where we'll end up. It's not going to be just personal ownership. It's not just going to be sort of fleet management and publicly shared. It's going to be a mix in the future. So these are sort of the different paradigms, and I won't go through it all. But today you own and drive. With car share, you're renting, and then you're driving. We're starting to go towards renting and being driven with TNC, right? And again, how things are changing. In the old days, you were told, don't speak to strangers. Don't get in a car with a stranger. Today, what do? We call up an app, we get in the car with a stranger, right? And then autonomous vehicles, what will the transaction model be? Probably a mix to be determined, and some form of driverless, whether completely driverless or, a little bit of hands-on at some point. So all the choices come together, and if we're successful, we'll have a good mix of this. If we're not successful, then we're just going to stay with what we have today. And I'll show you what that means, right? So if we're not starting to use those other modes of mobility and we're not successful, autonomous vehicles doesn't solve anything. It's life with it, life without it, right? It's still cars on the street, it's still the same number of cars. But here's where we want to go, right? So these are some studies, and some statistics of where we want to be in the future, and some examples of how mode share hopefully will change as time goes on, as we get into the future. And hopefully our kids will have much more choices than we have today, and they'll be making much shorter trips than we do today. So again, that's just highlighting all our new choices. And then the paradigm, right? This is what we have today, business as usual. We go to electrification and automation. Well, that doesn't really change a lot like I showed in the prior slides. Or we can start getting involved with these other choices and ride sharing, etc., with the autonomous vehicles. And that really starts to change our world and our opportunities to create better places and safer places and more walkable places, which is sort of where we're all going with this panel today. So, this is just a lot of things to think about if you're a municipality or if you're a member of the community just wants to get involved. And I just highlighted to kind of circle back to the meaning of this whole panel, which is doubling down on the complete streets. Don't get it out of hand. Think about what's going to happen in the future as you start to think about the improvements you're making. Frank touched on a lot of those things, pushing back into the street, reclaiming the spaces, and getting ready for the future. There's lots of different resources out there for you to start thinking about and figuring out how to plan for the future. And with that, that's my presentation.
Alrighty. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Unfortunately, we've only got 10 minutes left for questions. I'm just going to ask one quick question to Tom from DOT, if you don't mind. I saw that Huntington surprisingly was not very high on the list as far as, I guess, Long Island communities go, but as a Huntington resident, I just want to make a plug for Route 110. There's a lot of redevelopment happening, especially near the train station, and that particular stretch from Huntington train station to the village has become a bit of a speedway. So I want to make sure that doesn't get forgotten about, and that we can look at that and find some way to calm the traffic a bit on that particular stretch. That's my own personal plug, as I live right there. So.
Yeah, I cannot
All right.
speak to the
Yes?
timeline right now because that is still a part of the whole construction project. So we don't have a specific timeline.
There's
But
an
as you know,
easier,
we've been working
an easy,
with all the towns in terms of where these park garages are going to be located.
from the tree.
But as you know, the
And
project
the
itself
Nassau
is
County
shutting
can do
down
immediately. We're like the only
So
community that
just
does
know
not
that we will
have
do that.
bike racks on our buses. And to me, that's like a first step to doing a lot of these things, of getting people into the things. And also, Long Island Railroad, it used to be more biker unfriendly in the sense of restricting when you can take a bike on the train. You can't take it during rush hour. You used to be restricted. Now they're a little bit better about using it in the train instead of just at the first or the last car. But maybe getting Long Island Railroad a little bit more engaged in that.
Both of those things have been talked about a lot. The issue with Nice Bus and the bike racks is a infrastructure, bus kind of issue. Suffolk County has bike racks and they've had it for a while, but they know that people have been asking for that. And as far as the Long Island Railroad, it becomes the balance between the commuters and the passengers on and their safety versus, in terms of how many bikes they can accommodate on the train. But this has been raising as a louder and louder issue. So I've heard of certain transit systems that have a bus car. So there's different ways that could be done. I think as we see more bikes on Long Island, more bike lanes, maybe things will change. But it's always the balance between the safety and the comfort of the commuters, and a lot of bikes on a car can present issues.
Okay, so we have to move another group in here for the panel.
We're going to go back and forth, and hopefully.
Thank you. You can hear me? Okay. Thank you guys for wonderful presentations. I want to make a a couple questions for you and one comment about the Nice Bus bike racks. I've been to a lot of Nice meetings, and right now my understanding of the attitude of Nice Bus is that it costs money for every rider on Nice Bus. And so when I've gone and said, well, what are you doing to make more people ride the bus? Their response, Seltzer's response has been, oh, we don't want more people riding the bus, we can't afford it. So one of the things that we need to do with Nice Bus is try to make sure that they have the right attitude of trying to get more people to ride the bus, i.e. we can fund them to do that. I know. I've got a friend over there who's taking notes for me and going to ask that question, right? But I have a question for Tom, or several questions. So I was really excited to see the pedestrian study coming from the governor's office. I'd like to kind of comment that there should be cyclists in there too, but pedestrians help cyclists as well. I'm wondering, where is there opportunity for public feedback on what you guys are doing, and how can I figure out what you're doing? Because I've tried to find things on your site, and I live in Hampstead. I walk a mile and a quarter to school or bike on Hampstead Turnpike. I know it's one of the most dangerous roads in the world, and I can tell you why. I can go to somebody and say, this is one of the most dangerous roads in the state because blank, 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 blank. And I would love an opportunity to have feedback on what you guys are doing, or at least to find out on what you are doing. And one other thing, crosswalks. You mentioned that your goal is not to make more crosswalks. And one of the things I can say right now is one of the things that makes Hampstead Turnpike really dangerous is that people need to get across the street in the middle of a thing, and when you're on foot, it takes a long time to walk to the other light and cross, and then there's only a crosswalk on one side of the street, which I just never understood at all. So, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I didn't mean that we weren't interested in adding crosswalks, meaning providing additional opportunities to cross. It's just the PSAP initiative is to retrofit existing crossings. But other projects do install new crosswalks. We're talking about Nassau County. We did a lot of work on Hempstead Turnpike, a dozen or so new signals, a whole lot of new crosswalks. We recognize that there's 500 or more feet between signals, and it's not reasonable to ask a pedestrian to walk to the corner. They're just going to walk and cross where it's convenient. So that is still part of our plan. We did work on Hempstead Turnpike, we did work on Sunrise, Route 27, 2 projects on Sunrise. We're doing 2 projects on Route 110. Phase 1 is wrapping up. It was concentrated around Amityville. Now Phase 2 is starting up, and that's going to be more of a Huntington concentration. And we have Route 25 in the hopper. That's going to be let late next year, and that's from the city line to Greenport. And that'll provide a lot more crosswalks, more opportunities to cross safely. So I was just referring to the PSAP program. We're going to retrofit existing crosswalks. Did I capture all of your thoughts? Okay. The Huntington half-mile portion of 25A and the Miller Place portion of 25A in Suffolk, that's going to be a full 3 E's process where we're going to engage all the stakeholders, police, retired persons, the schools, see what everyone's needs are and have them be part of the equation, and we'll come up with some solutions. And but if you want to just chime in, you're always free to go to our website and leave a message, and we'll respond to you. We handle hundreds and hundreds of messages off the website each year, and we log it in, we assign it a case number, and we'll get back to you with our findings.
We're getting kicked out of this room, but I'm giving you 1 minute.
I'm going to keep this quick. I'm over by Stony Brook University, which has numerous issues regarding traffic, train students, and residents. There is a push to put walkways and more pedestrian-friendly means in, including, we don't even have a bus stop for these kids. The pushback has been from the residents because there's a large number of rental houses, and if they put sidewalks in front of them, they don't keep their houses, they're not going to keep those sidewalks. I encourage, because we're out of time, somebody please talk to me about how we can make the area safer and still accommodate these and maintain a lot of these. How are we maintaining much of that's put in? Because the towns don't want to deal with it, frankly.
Thank Thank you very much.